And welcome in Out of Bounds here on 1037 The Buzz. Appreciate everybody listening in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. John Nabors, Joe Franklin, broadcasting live from the Hogs Meat Market Studios with you today. And thank you, as always, for making us a part of your afternoon. This afternoon, it is a Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services. So we want to get to all of our reactions from the sports weekend. And we want to get to yours as well. You can call or text in at 501-661-1037. Get after us in the Asher Wrecker Live fan feedback. After me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNeighbors. And we're going to have a lot of things to try to cover because there is golf, there is horse racing, there is college baseball, there is Major League Baseball, there's NBA finals, there's college basketball news. I mean, there's hockey. There's so many things going on right now. And we're going to try to squeeze it in all in today's show, too, get the best and worst of the weekend as well. And that was kind of the thing, Joe, that, we love whenever there's plenty of sports to talk about, especially events, especially over a weekend. But when it came to this particular weekend, it seems like there was so many things that happened that, you pretty much had your TV on at something when it comes to sporting related stuff. And even the stuff that you didn't have, some pretty significant like news or some story came out from it that made you like go and find out more about it too. I mean, there was brawls that broke out. Like it was a wild weekend for the world of sports.
But that's the thing about it with some of the sports coming to an end, like NBA, NHL, other sports realize that now is the time that you can really take that spotlight. Not that they can't anytime during the year, but now with people, their focus shifting from certain sports, then there are others that are able to step up and take advantage of the spotlight that's there.
Yeah, because it's even like, we had the clip there in the highlights, and you're talking about Nick Taylor, part of the Canadian Open, to sink a 72-foot putt to walk it off on the fourth playoff hole and be the first Canadian, the native there, to win that tournament since 1954. Like something like that, it's just like, okay, if you didn't watch the Canadian Open, or you didn't even know the Canadian Open was going on, or you didn't even know who Nick Taylor was, because of that play of 72-foot putt, and because of the reactions, because of his buddy getting tackled by security for champagning the guy, and the fact that it was the first time a native has won that tournament since 1954, it's like that becomes an intriguing story that even if you didn't watch it live, you go back and you check it out, you read more on it, you see the highlights of it and everything. And like that was something to where I know, again, we'll get to best and worst of the weekend, but that was something that was really hard to beat. And that type of fashion to win an event like that and what it meant and the reaction and celebration from it all. That was a pretty special moment, I know, for him. And also, hitting a 72-foot putt. I can't even, drive 72 feet, I feel like sometimes. But this guy's over here just knocking it home. And the Jim Nantz call, it was a perfect thing. So there's something like that mixed in such an intriguing story over the weekend that maybe a lot of people didn't even watch live.
Yeah, it was a great story for Nick Taylor. But what brought added focus into the RBC Canadian Open, which is a big tournament every year, the news that broke with PGA and Live, so that added even more and extra eyeballs that probably wouldn't pay attention to it. And now to have that great storyline to go with it, with the golf tournament and Nick Taylor coming away with the win, not only being the Canadian, but the way that he won it. And it took 4 playoff holes to get it done.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, any type of event that has playoffs or overtimes or however you want to put it, extra innings, it's always going to have a lot of intrigue. But to win it in that fashion and to see all the stuff surrounding it was a really cool thing. And poor little Adam Hadwin, his buddy that goes out there, runs onto the course to champagne him in celebration, and security acted quickly and just went over there and tackled him, which, as you heard in the call there from Jim Nantz, they didn't really realize, what was going on and everything. But that was another little funny, he's fine, everything's fine, but a little funny, interesting element to it in the celebration too, seeing that guy, especially in slow motion with some of the video, getting tackled by security for champagning him like that.
That was ridiculous by security. Like, okay, you're doing a job and you want to keep everybody safe, but if you see somebody approaching and he's spraying champagne, you have to know that that person knows somebody. It's not just a random person coming onto the course to spray champagne. So in theory, he's doing his job,
right.
But to take the guy out like that, because what if that would have been the guy's dad? What if that would have been Nick Taylor's dad, and you take him out that way? And then it was a man in this case, but guaranteed if it was a woman that came onto the court spraying champagne, no matter if it's somebody he knows or doesn't know, she wouldn't have been treated the same way.
Yeah, it felt like it was a little overzealous. Like, I get that you wanna make sure everybody's safe, and I would even understand if there had been problems or ongoing problems where people just randomly were coming out of the woodwork in celebration and doing something like that. But I'm like, yeah, when I saw it, I was like, "Geez," I just felt like they went from 0 to 60 a little bit quicker. You know, I go up there and kinda maybe, like, touch him, like, "Hey, say, back up," but to just go full on, like, you're talking about like the United States president or something like that with Secret Service going in and tackling somebody. It just felt a little bit over the top. But again, everyone apologized. It's all right and all good and everything. But yeah, it was definitely seemed like it was a little extreme for that moment, especially in celebration like that
That's
too.
all it took. Just go stand in front of the guy, and if he says something to you from that point where it's like, "Hey, we're good friends" or whatever, of course, the security guy, it's up to him at that point to still do his job and say, "No, we can't allow you to get close to him." And then it would take for Nick Taylor to say, "That is my guy. Let him come on through."
Yeah, I again, I thought it was a little over the top, but a funny moment. It was just funny because between tacklings and brawls and all that, there was a lot of craziness that happened post matches or post celebrations that got out of hand in the sports world. Because you're talking about in the Stanley Cup, of course, in Game 4. After that game had ended for Vegas to take the 3-1 lead, you got a brawl that breaks out that takes a long time to get everybody calmed down and people getting very frustrated with the way that went. And of course, in the Floyd Mayweather fight, that was an exhibition and like an all out 50 people jump into the ring and start trying to fight there too.
See, there was a problem
Man,
going into that one where there were about 50 people, probably more than 50 people that went to the ring with Floyd. So if there was some kind of issue, everybody that went to the ring with Floyd went in, plus more went into the ring.
I wanted to like keep watching it and just to see the people and how quickly they got into the ring and exactly, what I guess what was the message, or maybe try to read some words or read some lips there too. But I've never seen anything like it where you got a fight, it gets called, but then the still fight keeps going on. And I mean, it was like everybody just from all over the place coming in and making sure that Gotti was making sure that it was not happening and not continuing on. It was just a weird thing and it was a funny thing, but not surprising because Floyd Mayweather and the type of group of people that I'm sure he has around him at all times and security and all those things, they weren't going to let that one slip, not at all.
Well, that's where the problem came in, and that's where it all started. Was the ref called the fight? The fight is over at that point, and as you see, John Gotti still approaching Floyd and trying to get around the ref to fight. Then the people on the outside knew that there was a problem, so they went in immediately.
It was almost like I don't want to try to make bad comparisons, but it's kind of the same way when it comes to your team that you're with. Like if you got the mouse at the palace or whatever, it's like, hey, it's like something happens, you're going to go and get your guy. You're going to take care of your guy. It's your team. That's what you're part of, and you're going to jump right in there and make sure that nothing happens. And that's what they did. It was absolutely chaotic. So because I didn't watch the fight, I'll be honest, but did they say why they called it or what brought it to them calling the fight early in the way that they did, as far as a reason?
There was never an explanation given other than the fact that Floyd was really beating John Gotti the third, and so that's why fights are usually called, because one fighter is dominating the other, and you don't see a way that the other fighter is able to rebound from what's going on in the ring. And there are warnings up until that point where you'll tell fighters at times, okay, if you don't do anything here, we don't see anything that you're progressing in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and call it. So don't know if the ref even went to that extreme or talked to him about it beforehand, but that's what usually happens in sanctioned bouts. And this is more of an exhibition. It's sanctioned, but it's an exhibition. So some of that stuff, it's a little bit different where you let some things go and you're just putting on a show. But that's probably, essentially what it stems from is the ref doesn't think the one fighter is giving any kind of output to the point of continuing the fight on, so they'll call a fight.
So how much money did, Floyd Mayweather make for I assume because I feel like, hey, he's money. He's not gonna do something for free. So I'm sure it was a significant amount of money to do this exhibition, right?
Well, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
but no number that's been put out there. Now, this fight and Floyd's last fight didn't have a lot of marketing behind it and didn't have a lot of media coverage saying or even showing that the fight was happening on a certain date. And so there were people that, as far as that would usually watch these fights, they had no idea that this fight was happening until maybe the day before. And I think maybe originally it was scheduled for Saturday, but it was in the Florida Panthers arena and they had a game
Oh.
Saturday night. So now you have the fight pushed back to Sunday. So people in the area knew about it, but on the outside, if you're planning on watching this fight, didn't hear much about it until it got closer to the weekend and maybe Saturday before you start hearing about Floyd Mayweather, John Gotti III taking place on Sunday.
Well, they, may not have heard about a fight bleeding into it, but they certainly have after the fact 'cause, it was, quite a scene there, and if you haven't seen the video, you need to check it out. It was a wild deal, an absolute wild deal that was happening, and, again, it's a scary thing too because there's when you're so many people involved, and, it's already a very physical sport as it is, and tensions are pretty high, and, just trying to stop that many people, especially, big guys like they were, luckily, it didn't seem like anything too serious happened, but it was definitely a wild scene, sitting there in Florida. But I mean, I didn't know the fight happened, and of course, I don't follow it as much. But watching those videos over and over again made it pretty interesting. One of the many things that happened over the weekend that were pretty interesting there too. So hey, we got a lot to cover. That's just the tip of the iceberg here on Out of Bounds, as it is Reaction Monday, presented by Fleet Management Services. Want to hear from you. What do you react to over the sports weekend? What'd you watch? What were you most interested in? Let us know. Call or text in 501 661 1037. We'll have more Out of Bounds coming up on the other side of the break, so stay with us. It's a reaction Monday here on Out of Bounds, folks, and I had plenty of reactions because there were so many sports things happening over the weekend that not only did I get to watch them, but I got to bet on them too with Bet Saracen. And I'll tell you what, I love the Bet Saracen app because it's so easy. They have all the different events going on, whether it's you just want to do spreads and money lines, or maybe you're thinking that you want to do some parlays, maybe some specials that they're running daily. They have it all. It's pretty brutal over the weekend for me, though, because I had a parlay of TCU, -1.5, right? Boom. There you go. Well, also having the over at 10.5 runs seems logical, right? Only 10 runs were scored. Hated it. Could have won a lot of money. But hey, that's the way it goes. But with Saracen, the payouts are instant. It's easy to withdraw. It's easy to put the money in. It's the easiest thing to do. So what are you doing? If you're not using Bet Saracen, do it right now. Go and download the app right now. You can also go online at betsaracen.com, get the betting going that way. Start watching these events with a little bit more intensity and a little bit more interest when you got some money on the line with Bet Saracen. Again, it's a Reaction Monday here on Out of Bounds, and we're reacting to everything that happened over the sports weekend. And also wanted to mention that we'll have Andrew Hudson on in the 3 o'clock hour a little bit, talking about some of the updates with some baseball players moving and shaking and some other things too. But we're also going to be giving away a pair of Nickelback tickets today, which I'm excited about. I'm going to try to snag some tickets myself and go to that concert. I'm not ashamed about it. It's going to be a good one. And so what we're going to do today, folks, if you're listening, whenever you hear the Nickelback song play, be the first to call in at 501-661-1037. Be the first caller whenever that music plays from Nickelback, and you'll get the tickets. And we'll have a few pairs to give away this week too. So looking forward to that. And it is amazing, Joe. I put it out on Twitter that we're going to be doing some giveaways this week for Nickelback tickets. And I was expecting the run-of-the-mill jokes to come flying in. Like, oh, of course you got to give them away because no one's going to buy them, blah, blah, blah. I saw actually the opposite. A lot of people were excited about that and wanting to get in on it and try to get those tickets. So it's, people think that there's the jokes around there, but there's a lot of people that still like Nickelback and still want to go see them in concert too. So.
Yeah. And especially if the tickets are free, that's the best way to get them.
Yeah. It's the best. Free 99 is there's no better price out there than that. So first Arkansas Bank and Trust text line. Tim in North Little Rock said Adam Hadwin had suffered a bad shoulder injury because of that tackle. Can't play in the U.S. Open this week, which, it's weird to see the tackle when it happened and everything, because it was good form by the security guard. I'll give him credit. He squared up on him too. But that is the unfortunate thing is, for him and being like hurt that way to where he can't play, being a golf pro himself. That's the frustrating thing, where I'm sure he never dreamed in a million years that champagning his friend in celebration would lead to him not being able to play in the U.S. Open this upcoming week. That's what's unfortunate about it too.
There may be a lawsuit there against the security guard, but maybe the PGA steps in, they take care of it.
Maybe so. They got money to throw around these days. And we'll have some other updates too throughout the rest of the show. And on the Asher Record Live fan feedback from MMA fan, it says, congrats to MMA fighter Amanda Nunes on retaining her title belts and retiring after a great career. Joe, is she the GOAT in the MMA? And what about Dana White dissolving that division, as it appears to have been planned all along?
She is, because she's going out on top and 2-belt winner. She was a 2-division champion before, and now she's taken that to the end. And it was the perfect way for her to go out. So she's going out on top. And yeah, it is something that probably Dana White has been thinking about for a while. And once again, this becomes the perfect opportunity to let that division go.
Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Brent, who's in Stuttgart. What's up, Brent?
What's up, Johnny?
What's up, Brent?
Hey, it was great to see you in Fayetteville at the regional last weekend.
Yeah, it was good to see you too, Brent. Sorry we didn't get to see you this past weekend. It would have been nicer to see you at the Supers too, but hey, it's the way it goes, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, it just happens, John. But we had a great year. So, what is your feeling, Johnny Wishbone, on Grant Nelson?
Man, I don't even want to give my feelings out, just because I have no idea. I mean, I have heard from people that say they feel good about it. I've heard from people that say they feel bad about it. But now that the decision's not going to be made today, it was supposed to originally be reported by Joe Tipton that he was going to make a decision on Sunday or Monday. Well, it didn't happen Sunday, and then today it's being reported by Grant Nelson's family that he's not going to make his decision today. So therefore, people who thought at Arkansas that it wasn't going to be good news for them if he was deciding today, now they feel better about it because if they're putting off the news, that must means that there's still some things going on behind the scenes. I have really zero idea. I really don't. It's just it's tough to call these things, especially when you're talking. It's because it feels like an auction. It's like, all right, how much, 29, 29, all right, 30, 30, 30, all right, 30, and it just keeps going back and forth is what it feels like.
Absolutely, but I'm just going to tell you, I'd be pumped up to win the Nickelback tickets now. Where are they playing in Little Rock?
It's at Simmons Bank Arena.
When is it?
Oh, yeah, actually, I guess I should have been probably one of the first things I should have said. I got the dates right here. It's September 25th.
Oh, what a Christmas present. Go here, Nickelback. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, there you go. An early Christmas present.
Yeah, September, Brent.
Oh, September 25th. I thought he said December 25th.
Yeah, if Nickelback's playing on Christmas Day, I don't know how many people would be showing up for that. But yeah, September 25th is what they're doing.
What day of the week's that? I don't even know.
You're killing me, Brent. All right, let me look it up. 25th is a Monday, actually. So a Monday night concert.
Oh, yeah. I could make that. But, John, you and Joe do a great job.
Well, we appreciate it, man.
Brent.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
All right, you as well, Brent. Appreciate you calling in. Yeah, it's a Monday, September 25th at Simmons Bank Arena is when the concert will be. So interesting, a Monday night concert. That'll be pretty good. That's not. No, it's not. It's not. I get Memorial Day, Labor Day mixed up because it's like the final Monday of May is the Memorial Day,
right?
And then the first Monday of September is Labor Day. Okay,
Yep.
So yeah, throwing me off there a little bit too. So, but yeah, we got that concert coming up, and don't forget, folks, the Beer and Margarita Festival is coming up here soon too. Looking forward to that on July 22nd. And tickets are on sale right now at 1037thebuzz.com. So get in on that. That's always a lot of fun to go to that. And especially being right there in downtown in the big convention center and making it where you don't have to fight off the weather and the elements and the heat and all of that. So that'll be here before we know it. So right there, July 22nd. So get in on that too.
We'll talk to Reed about it soon.
Oh, yeah.
And we always talk about some of the vendors that are there, how many different brands they have, and it seems to get bigger and better every year.
Oh, yeah. I told him this the last time I saw him, and I didn't mean it in a disrespectful way, and he didn't take it as one either. But I don't know why, but every time I see him, he reminds me of, I guess, Bert Kirshner, the comedian. You know what I'm talking about? The machine thing is his whole bit. He's like a big guy. But anyways, I feel like they look alike.
Yeah.
Because he's got the big beard and and just the tall guys, like big guys.
He gets Seth Rogen quite a bit.
I could see Seth Rogen too. I could see that too. So yeah, I mean, there's worse people to look like than Seth Rogen and Bert Kirshner there too. So let's see. Asher Record Live fan feedback. This says from the NFL Guru. Says Tom Brady is quickly becoming like his NFL arch rival Peyton Manning in his retirement. That guy is everywhere, and it was great to see him at the French Open, sitting in the winner's box as he made history with a 23rd title. So he is everywhere. He is everywhere. I heard the story that he had some model or something that she said that she threw himself at him, or threw herself at her, or how do I say this? She threw herself at him, and apparently he kind of like, nah. Just
Adriana Lima.
Oh, is that her? Okay. Is she an Instagram model, or she got?
No. She's a big time worldwide model that's been in Sports Illustrated, Victoria's Secret.
I can't keep up with who's modeling where, but yeah, I just laughed at that story because to be Tom Brady, got a model like that throwing herself at you, and you're it's fine, whatever. I don't have to worry about it. But
he's more focused on his kids these days.
Oh yeah. And listen, he's that's the thing that always just fascinates me about big time athletes, which we've seen. And I'm not trying to make the full comparison, but think about like Michael Jordan and how he's one of the all-time greats, the all-time greatest player, depending on how you look at it, championships, all of that. But the amount of business that he did outside of the game of basketball, or at least during his playing days, and increasing branding and all of that, I always find it really fascinating when athletes do that. And I'm sure, and Tom Brady's kind of delved into a lot of that. So yeah, he's still going to be present. He's still going to be out there. He's still going to be doing stuff. He's a very smart guy and very business savvy, it seems like. So he's going to make sure that The branding and the presence there is known, and he's going to dip his finger in a lot of different ventures.
And everybody always wants to keep up with those guys and know what they're doing right now. And so it'll always be a story simply because when you see him somewhere, you know he's part owner in the Raiders. There's always going to be questions about him. And whenever he's seen, especially if it's been a while since he's been seen out and about, everybody wants to know what have you been up to? What's going on?
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, and you can tell him from a mile away. What was it that was it Shaq and Chuck when they were talking about Tom Brady, and Chuck was like, "I'm just gonna say it. That's a beautiful man right there."
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Shaq was kind of laughing about it. He's like, "I've told you, he's a beautiful man." Once you see him, he's like, I lost myself in his eyes." Like, so it's like, I guess when he makes that impression just by being there physically, and has a presence around him too.
And Chuck was having some fun with that when they played in some of the match over the
that's right.
summer, and they're involved in it, and Chuck is involved in the coverage. So that was leading up to one of those, or maybe after one of those at the time.
Yeah, one of the best clips is when Tom Brady hits that chip shot and it goes in the hole, and then he just says "Eat it, Chuck," because Chuck was making fun of him and everything too. So
Chuck challenges everybody that is playing in that event. He seems to challenge them and want to play after the fact. And of course, we know that Chuck likes to have fun. So then he's going to make some wagers or try to entice somebody to make some wagers.
Oh, yeah. He'll always do that. And speaking of wagers, tonight you got NBA Finals, Game 5, as the Nuggets are leading 3-1, and this game being back in Denver. So Denver's going to try to win their NBA title tonight at their home arena. And we were just talking about Bet Saracen. Bet Saracen's got him at his 9-point favorites in this one. So Denver was favored in all the games so far, even the ones on the road. But seeing them at 9 points, that's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out, because obviously the Heat facing elimination and knowing what's on the line is big. I even saw that Tyler Hero, I guess, is going to be dressing out tonight for the Heat. So
last-ditch effort.
Yeah, but
might as well go for it.
Yeah, but I still feel like if I'm picking Denver, but I don't know if I'm picking 9 points. That's quite a bit, but I think the Nuggets get it done tonight and they win their title tonight in Denver. I think it happens.
The Heat will give some fight, so it'll be interesting to see if it does come down to the end, like a lot of these games have, and what the point differential is there, and if they can come away with the win. But Tyler Hero, they've been on a watch for him every game, and there was a thought going into the finals he'd be available right away. So it was said going into game 1 he wouldn't be available for that. So now games 2, 3, 4, every game after that, everybody's been wondering when would he actually hit the court. It maybe have made some sense to try to get him in a game at home, but if he wasn't entirely ready to go, then now's the moment. But you're up against it, and you have to win each and every game from here on out to continue on to have another game. And so that's why you get him into the lineup, because you've been throwing some different strategies out there, and only one time throughout this series so far in 4 games, it's worked to your advantage where you come away with the win.
So I'm honestly asking, because I know Tyler Hero is a good player, but I mean, does he make the difference tonight? Like, can he make the difference if he's 100% healthy and is able to play his game? I mean, is he that type of impact player to where he's the difference between them losing and winning tonight?
He's a good shooter, and especially a good 3-point shooter. And we've seen that the Heat, they take a lot of 3-point shots. Sometimes they're making them at a high clip, and other games you've seen that they haven't made them at the rate that they want to, and those are the games that have been attached to the losses.
Yeah. I mean, I just really like what Denver's doing and the way that they play, and it's not really surprising. They haven't lost many playoff games at all this playoff. I mean, they've just been extremely dominant, especially at home. So I guess the only home game that they've lost was to the Heat just in game 2. So
and yeah, hard to imagine that they would lose 2 more,
right.
Possibly. If they get in that situation where you go to a game 7, that means that the Nuggets would have to lose 2 more games at home for the Heat to come away with a win in this series.
And I saw somebody else, I think it was somebody on ESPN, tweeted out about, this would just be another small market team getting a victory in the NBA Finals. Of course, you saw Milwaukee and Toronto. I was like, I don't feel like Denver's a small market. But is it considered a small market?
Compared to what they consider, what they're thinking about. They're thinking about New York, LA, Houston, Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a small market, definitely, compared to those.
Okay. Because I guess whenever I thought about the city of Denver itself, and I always thought it was considered a big market, they got every professional team there. And I know that's not the definition of what's a small market or not, but I guess I never considered it that way, which, say what you wanna about the NBA. Maybe there's people that, either like the NBA or don't, but you gotta give a lot of credit where credit is due because it's not just about, oh, bunch of players getting together and going to the biggest market team with the most money. Because in the NBA, if Denver takes care of business, which I think we all believe they will at some point, at least maybe not tonight, but at some point, you're talking about, was that 3 of the last 5 championships in the NBA won by small market teams? I mean,
There are
that's
more small market teams than big market teams, though. It's
yeah.
only a handful of really big market teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just about the stereotype, or at least uh, you call it the myth if you want to, about everyone just thinking that, oh, they just, they all go and just join these big teams with these big markets in these big areas. And it's not the case. It's like, because even take other sports leagues, for instance, like, yeah, occasionally you'll have a team from LA win it, or a team from New York win it, a team from Chicago win it, a team from Houston win it. Like, it does happen, but I don't think that it happens as often as sometimes maybe people try to make it sound. Like, especially in baseball. I mean, the Dodgers, for instance, take them. Their payroll's outside of the wazoo. Like, it is insane. But and I say only, but they got one title, and like they've had the highest payroll in huge market and all of that for 10, 15 years. They got one title. So just because you have the big markets and everything doesn't always equate to, oh, it's easier to win. A lot of the cases you see a lot of the small market teams take care of business and end up winning that way too.
Yeah, the big market teams are the ones that get the most attention. And we always hear this, and we heard it coming into the NBA Finals this year, that there are not going to be as many viewers if it was LA and the Celtics, if it's the Lakers and the Celtics, which those are two teams that were in the last four. They made it to the conference finals. So those are two huge markets. And, the thought was there's going to be some drop off if not one of those teams makes it to the finals, and neither one of them made it.
Yeah. Well, and also you could doing it that way and saying, okay, well, it's going to be a drop off from these two teams. Like, yeah, but of course it is. Like, it's just, it's how sports are. There are teams that have larger fan bases that have been around more historically, that have a lot of championships to go along with it. That's always going to drive a little bit more interest. But just because it's not those two teams doesn't mean no one's watching either. It doesn't mean like, no one cares. It's like, have you been seeing have you seen what Joker's been doing? Like, have you seen the numbers this guy's been putting up? You can't tell me that if you're a true basketball fan, NBA, college, whatever, if you're a true basketball fan, that you can't be interested and impressed by what this guy is doing, especially at the highest level and the highest stage in the NBA Finals, and that draws a little bit of interest. I think there's a lot more than what people give it credit for.
There is something to East Coast bias, and it's simply because they're so many hours ahead of Pacific time. And so that's why you see a lot of these leagues, they're split east west. So you can have some variation on both sides with teams. But like NFL, for example, you could have a Super Bowl where there isn't an east west type deal. You could have it where it's strictly West Coast. And then, the thought would be that people on the East Coast aren't going to be as involved in it, and it's going to start later. But the Super Bowl, everybody watches worldwide, so you can kind of throw that out, and that's why it still works for the NFL.
Yeah, you could have the Rams and the Raiders, and people are still going to watch the Super Bowl like crazy. So, yeah, that's never going to be an issue or anything like that. But I don't know. I just find it so funny when people think that it's like you're going from like, oh, if it was Lakers, Celtics, hundreds of million, but then if it's Denver and Miami, you only got like 2 million. It's like, no, there's still a bunch of people watching it. But every sport, because I guess even in the NFL, if you had like I'm just throwing out teams, but say if it was like the Cowboys and the Patriots, or something like that, like, teams that would draw a lot of audience in, or Cowboys and Steelers would be another one, like big market teams that have a lot of fans across the country and everything. There'll be a lot more people watching, but doesn't mean nobody's going to be watching if it's not those teams. That's what we're saying. We got a lot more coming up on a Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services, and we'll get to what's trending in the world of sports next year on Out of Bounds.
If you're shopping for a vehicle, you want to get to Guadney Chevrolet. Guadney has best deals in the market, been doing it 60 plus years. Give them a call, 501-982-2102. Make the trip to the Gregory Street exit in Jacksonville. Shop them online, GuadneyChevrolet.com. You can see all the deals, the cash allowances, the rebates, even appraise a vehicle. See just how much it's worth. They're paying thousands over book value, whether you trade that vehicle in or sell it to Guadney Chevrolet. And Guadney is always actively buying vehicles, so you get a great deal on a vehicle that you trade in or sell. See the entire inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles on GuadneyChevrolet.com. And some of the deals that are there, no payments for 90 days, 1.9% is available on Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, Traverse, and Silverados equipped with the Turbo Max engine when financing with GM and a well-qualified buyer. It's Guadney Chevrolet, Arkansas's #1 Chevy dealer. Guadney Chevrolet, GuadneyChevrolet.com.
It is Out of Bounds on a Reaction Monday, presented by Fleet Management Services. So I know we're going to have plenty to talk about in the 2 o'clock hour. We'll have best and worst of the weekend and talk about some highlights and some lowlights to go along with that too. But right now, we know with the amount of things going on in sports, we got to talk about what's trending in them. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
What's trending in the world of sports is sponsored by Arkansas-based West Rock Coffee. Join West Rock Coffee and their 1.5 million coffee farmers around the globe as they fuel Arkansas with great tasting coffee, tea, and water delivered directly to your business. Contact them at westrockcoffee.com or 833-886-JAVA today.
All right, what's trending in the world of sports? A few things that are going on. We already talked about the NBA Finals Game 5 tonight, where the Heat are going to try to avoid getting officially eliminated as the Nuggets have a 3-1 series lead. But what a cool little thing that happened over the weekend, and seeing some passion from the very first woman trainer to ever win in the Belmont Stakes in 155 years. Hoping it's Gina Antonucci, right? Gina Antonucci?
Sounds right.
I think it sounds good to me. But anyway, she had a really fun video too, where it was showing her celebration and her during the race. But she got it done. Again, the first female trainer to do it as her horse Arcangelo. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Arcangelo, but that doesn't sound right. So, anyways, yeah, got the victory there, and was a really cool performance. And then we had Mark the Magician on last week too, and talking about the Belmont Stakes and everything. That ended up being a pretty fun race and a pretty fun moment for her, getting the victory as the first female trainer. So
that's always a really long race. So some variation in there, where sometimes you see a horse that takes the lead right away, but other horses that are back in the pack, it's such a long race that they do have time to make up the ground.
And some NFL news, too. Running back Saquon Barkley was asked how optimistic he feels about getting a long-term deal from the New York Giants. He paused, seemingly unsure what the appropriate answer was, which he responded with, I don't know. So kind of unsure if there's going to be a deal that gets done with the New York Giants there for Saquon Barkley, or at least he doesn't feel overly optimistic about it happening at any point in time when it comes to long-term deals. So
little over a month from now that they have to meet that deadline to get a long-term deal worked out. And if not, he'll play under the franchise tag for a little over $10 million a year. So, he was kind of being pushed on the number, and he really didn't want to put that out there on either side, where he said anything about what he was wanting or what the Giants were offering, or how close the two sides were to coming together for a deal.
Now, this is another crazy story dealing with the NBA. Again, lots of fights and things that are happening. But Conor McGregor sent the Heat mascot to the ER, and during their Game 4 match against the Nuggets. Now, you hear that, and it's kind of like a weird thing, but it was a bit that was going on where Conor McGregor's out there with the Miami Heat mascot, and just kind of doing fighting a little bit here. Well, then he absolutely knocked him out. Full on punch twice. And they ended up having to go to the ER. And I get part of the bit. He's been released. The mascot or the person inside the mascot uniform has been released, and he's going to be okay. But just a crazy thing where I'm like, what did you think was going to happen when you get Conor McGregor to say, hey, just punch him? but like he doesn't know how to punch, not to punch hard. Like, I just don't
He
say.
does. He does.
Oh, I don't think so.
They should have told him, like, look, this is a bit, and we're not talking about putting your all into it. Just act like you're throwing a punch on the mascot, and the mascot's gonna fall.
Well, he acted like he threw a punch because he did throw a punch, and the mascot definitely fell because it fell hard. But either way, kind of a crazy, weird thing too, and maybe it'll get people to think twice about having Conor McGregor fake fight somebody moving forward. But again, it's like it's not funny, but it's kind of funny just because you see the mascot and that's all you see, like the no reaction, but the person in there is actually pretty messed up and pretty hurt there too. But also in some other NBA news. The Celtics finalizing a deal to hire Charles Lee as their lead assistant coach. He was highly regarded, and as of course we know, the Celtics have been reshaping their coaching staff. But the head coaching searchers, like from Detroit and from Toronto, they're looking at possibly getting him into the mix. But instead, he's moving over to be the assistant for the Celtics after leaving Milwaukee for the past 9 seasons. So
always a good idea to get one of the coaches involved that was a finalist for several jobs. So that's what they're getting.
Yeah, and another thing, I got a notification about this yesterday, and this is more on the local scene too, but 3 Arkansas State basketball players have been arrested on theft charge. This was past Saturday. DeAndre Dominguez, Julian Luau, and Terrence Ford, they were booked on Saturday on a charge of theft of $1,000 or left, according to Craighead County Sheriff's Office online records, and they were released 2 hours later. They don't have any more details, at least not at this point in time, and really what's going on, but definitely not something you want to see, especially with Arkansas State and trying to get things going with a new coach and new culture that they're bringing in. That's not the type of publicity that you want to be bringing in at this point.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. We'll keep you updated on that particular story too. But also, I know we'll dive into some of the baseball news that happened over the weekend, and college baseball, that is, when it comes to the scores and updates. And we got a few teams that have already punched their ticket to the World Series, but we also got some games that are happening today as 6 of the 8 teams are officially advancing, and the winner of Southern Miss Tennessee tonight at 5 o'clock, and then Texas at Stanford at 7 o'clock. We'll see who punches those tickets as well. LSU, Florida, 2 teams from the SEC that are going to be jumping into the Omaha series, which not necessarily surprising. Florida is one of the best teams, and the team that they shared a SEC title with, Arkansas, in the regular season, but also LSU's been a team that's had definitely a lot of talent, and Paul Skeens being that guy has been pretty impressive as well. So
you get these teams well rested, and then you take advantage of TV time and get them in some prime time spots tonight.
Yeah. I know we're going to be doing best and worst of the weekend next, so I'm going to save my little worst for something that has to do with college baseball and the timing and scheduling on everything too. But how about the guy yesterday for Stanford throwing like 150 pitches in a game? Like, people were very critical of that, but I'm like, that seems way too many.
Unheard of.
Way too many, and a complete game too. So I don't know. I'm torn on that. I'm mixed on that, but I can understand why people took so much issue with it too. So we'll have some other headlines though, and of course we'll talk more about it in the best and worst of the weekend here on Out of Bounds. And that was a quick moving first hour. We got the second hour on the way on the other side of the break. So stay with us. 1 hour down, 2 hours to go. Appreciate everybody listening in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. John Nabors, Joe Franklin, broadcasting live from the Hogs Meat Market Studios with you today. And thank you, as always, for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon. It is Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services. So everything that you want to react to over the sports weekend, let us know about it. Call or text in 501-661-1037. You get after us in the Ashford Record Live fan feedback and after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNeighbors. And we're going to have best and worst of the weekend coming up here in just a little bit because there's plenty of things to react to as well with that. But I will say that one of the other headlines that happened, which I guess in the NBA, it's a pretty big deal, but Raptors Fred VanVleet nixes his option to become a free agent. So with the Raptors, that is. So I guess people are thinking that he's going to be taking another deal somewhere else, maybe joining a team that needs someone like him to put them over the edge, I guess. I don't know. I got a notification for it. And I said, like,
So
that's
he
a big
opted
deal.
out.
Yeah, he opted out.
Yeah, player option at the end of his contract, and that's something you can take advantage of as a player and get a big payout, or you can choose to try to renegotiate on that contract or go to another team.
$22.8 million is what he declined on with that option, too. So, yeah.
He may feel like he's in line for a bigger payday than that per year.
He might be. He might be. I know he's a really good player there, too. So, NBA free agency, it never ceases to entertain, that's for sure. First Arkansas Bank and Trust text line, both from 501s kind of asking the same thing, but this says, I keep hearing that the longer it takes for Grant Nelson, that is, to make a decision, the more likely he is to choose the Razorbacks. Why is that? Well, I think it's because when you have visits that happen, it's a back and forth. And when you can call them negotiations, you can call them recruiting, whatever it is, there's a back and forth. And say, all right, so what do you got? All right. Now I'm going to go over here. What do you got? And with Arkansas and Alabama, the two schools that he's down to, he visited Alabama first, went to Arkansas second. And usually how those visits go, that if the visit went really well or it was good to go, then he would have committed to Arkansas. And again, stereotypically speaking, would have committed to Arkansas today or even yesterday after his visit came to an end. But since he didn't, that usually means, okay, he's probably going to go to the other side then because if he didn't like the visit so much that he didn't commit right then and there, probably means he's still thinking about Alabama. But if that was the case, then he would have already committed because he's already gone through the visits and everything. But with what's going on in the negotiations or trying to figure things out, means he's still torn between them. And people feel better about Arkansas than maybe what they did a day ago, because the longer it goes out, that means that Arkansas has still a puncher's chance of being able to land them compared to what it is Alabama.
It's 50-50. It's two schools. It's 50-50. And the fact that it just shows that he's still weighing all the options. And so now he's thinking about what will be the best opportunity for playing time to make him a better player. But also, we know that NIL is a big part of what's going on. So there could be some discussions about NIL opportunities at each place.
Oh, yeah. A player like his caliber, which, here's the thing. What he wants, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, he's even said this. What he wants is he wants to go to a school that can put him in a good position to get drafted into the NBA and put him into a position to where he can get ready for the next level, play on a contending team, and be able to make the most of his brand. Like that, those are all the things that go into it. Well, when you go on those campus visits, you know what you're getting. Like there's nothing else that can be said after those visits to say, well, in addition to you getting ready for the NBA, here's what also we can do to get you ready for the NBA. Like you lay it all out as far as what you do to get ready, what the team's going to look like, what your role is going to be. All that's been laid out. The only thing that hasn't been laid out fully, or at least something that can be ever changing, is NIL. Like that's the thing that you can continue to increase. That's the thing you can continue to hit home. And is that the reason why it's taking a bit? Maybe so, but we're not going to find out today. It's probably going to be tomorrow because at least that's what's being reported. Of course, I say that, and then 3 days ago, somebody Joe Tipton said it was going to be Sunday. So you're just going to have to be in wait and see mode. Who knows? Maybe it happens today. Maybe it happens tomorrow. But everything's been laid out on the table. It's just a matter of which one he decides to go to. And I'm sure that the reactions will be completely rational whenever he makes that decision from both sides.
Yeah, and even his family that's gotten involved, like Alabama media, they were able to speak with his dad. His dad didn't necessarily speak with Arkansas media. So there were people that bought into that to say, okay, they have to be leaning towards Alabama because he gave time to Bama and actually talked to them and said they had a great visit. Didn't really say much about what happened at Arkansas, but that was prior to the visit to Arkansas.
Yeah. I think it'd be kind of humorous if he just like chose neither of those schools and went to somewhere random that no one saw coming. That'd be pretty funny.
Maybe there is a last hour team that could emerge.
Yeah. I know a team like Kentucky, I'm just throwing them out there, but they're a team that needs some help when it comes to player roster and depth and everything because they have nothing but a bunch of freshmen coming in and they've missed out on some transfers. So who knows? Maybe somebody like Kentucky could jump in at the midnight hour and try to throw it in and try to make their presence known there too. We'll have to wait and see. But that's why people feel better about it the longer it takes. May not make a total amount of sense, but I think Alabama's probably saying the same thing. Hey, the longer it takes, the better we feel about it. But we should have a decision here soon. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the best and worst of the weekend.
It was the best of times.
In your life, have you seen anything like that?
It was the worst of times.
Nuts and bolts, we got screwed. Third down.
It's time for the best and worst of the weekend on Out of Bounds.
All right, best and worst of the weekend. I'll go ahead and kick it off with the best of the weekend in sports. Listen, the Nick Taylor win was just such a cool moment. Like, you had everything that you love about sports mixed into one. And this is something that I feel like happens more often than maybe we even get it credit for, where if it's a sport you don't watch a lot, or if maybe it's not like the all-time most popular sport, like in this case, golf, what can bring people to be interested in it and what can bring people to pay a little bit more attention to it is when you have storylines, when you have box office drama and entertainment, and you had everything in the Canadian Open because you had history being made. We're talking about him being the first native of Canada to win it since like 1955. You also throw in the 72-foot putt to win it on top of walking it off there in playoff holes. You also have the celebration. You have the champagne. You have his buddy getting tackled. Like everything that you could possibly want in an event, that was it. And so it was just an incredible thing that where even if you're not a golf fan, if you're a sports fan, you got to love everything that went along with it. So to me, that was the best of the weekend.
Couple of combat sports. You had Amanda Nunes in MMA. She was able to win her fight. Teofimo Lopez, he won his fight in boxing. Both stars retired after the match, and Teofimo actually made the announcement official here on ESPN just within the last hour, but he hinted at it after the fight. They asked him what was next for him, who was he looking at, and he said, I don't know, I may just step away, may retire. But he ends his career at 19-1 with 14 KOs. Amanda Nunes ends her career at 23-5, and 17 of the fights were stopped by either KO or submission. So big-time careers coming to an end. More likely that Amanda Nunes is done for good, whereas Teofimo Lopez, he's 25 years old, and he's retiring from boxing right now, and it is a case of him stepping out on top, but he's so young that you could see him returning at some point.
So when fighters like that end up retiring, what's kind of the usual move? Like, you know, everyone says, oh, when you're a great NFL, great quarterback or whatever, I go into broadcasting. Like, is that kind of maybe something that MMA and like fighters do, that they go broadcasting, that they go to training? Like, what's kind of their more often than not move after they retire?
Both of those. You want to see that they'll continue to work with others and especially younger fighters and help them along. But Teofimo Lopez, he is one of those guys that probably fits the mold of going into broadcasting. He's done some of it, and you know, he's able to break down fights in a certain way that would be enjoyable. With Amanda Nunes, she's looking at spending more time with the family and you know, just kind of riding off into the sunset more so.
Well, another best of the weekend for me is actually dealing with college baseball, which I said I wasn't going to watch a whole lot of it, but then when I went on the Bet Saracen app and started putting some money down, I felt like I had more of an invested interest. But shout out to Oral Roberts. Like, you're talking about a team from Tulsa that is actually the first non-Power 5 team to make it to the College World Series since Cal State Fullerton did it back in 2017. So it's been quite a while since a team like that's made it. But for whatever reason, I feel like Oral Roberts has always had some really good programs, but especially when it comes to baseball. And they had to go all the way out to Eugene, Oregon to take on the Ducks in that facility and with that fan base and take care of business. They've won 51 games this year, and they're heading to the College World Series. We talk about small market teams in the NBA and how it can be really cool to see them win. I think it's also great in college sports too. Doesn't happen very often in football. Very seldom happens in basketball too. But in baseball, we've seen it happen recently. And I think that depending on who you're rooting for, or if you even care to watch, it's up to debate. But seeing Oral Roberts make it and, being from so close around here and getting to that World Series and seeing the celebration to go along with it was a really cool moment for them. And so they're going to be my team that I'm going to be rooting for this year in the World Series.
Sue Bird and Sylvia Fowles, they are former WNBA players. They both had their jerseys retired over the weekend. So capping off some good careers, and they stepped away last year, but both organizations, the Seattle Storm, Minnesota Lynx, recognize some of the better players that have been in their organization and retired their jerseys.
Also wanted to, say one of the best things of the weekend I saw was not really necessarily directly sports related, but kind of sports related, because Luke Combs was playing a concert, and he's a big old burly guy, big country guy. He likes his beer because he sings a lot about beer, just like a lot of country artists do. But had an awesome moment there where Patrick Mahomes was invited up on stage with Luke Combs.
He does this in every city.
And he shotgun a beer with Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes, I'll give him credit. He shotgun. He didn't do it as quick as Luke Combs did, but he held his own and everything along with it too. I would have felt like Travis Kelce would have been in that role. And probably most people think of Travis Kelce being that guy. But Mahomes can get down with it too. And I just thought it was a really cool thing to where, it is something he does a lot. But to get actual Patrick Mahomes up there to shotgun a beer when you're a two-time Super Bowl champion, it puts a little bit more sweetness on it as well.
Wake Forest, number 1 overall seed in college baseball, going to the College World Series, and the win that they got 22-5 over Alabama to advance. That's a best.
Yeah, that was they've looked dominant. We had Kendall Rogers on a few weeks ago when talking about it. He brought up Wake Forest. They've been number 1 for the majority of the season. They've looked really good doing it. But they're definitely showcasing their ability and just absolutely stomping out Alabama. Worst of the weekend, and sticking with the college baseball theme. Okay, the weather delays and lightning delays. I understand fully, trust me, about the importance of being safe when it comes to lightning and weather. We've had James Bryan on this show a lot. I know he's very strong about it, and people who are meteorologists and experts in the field, they're very understanding of the significance of what could happen during severe weather, and especially in a baseball game, especially when you have metal bats out there. Totally get it. But what happened over the weekend in several instances, and maybe even has happened all postseason, but especially down there in Baton Rouge with LSU in the Kentucky series on Saturday, there's no excuse for that. We're talking about a game that should have been played and was scheduled to be played earlier in the afternoon, to where they go through it all, the game gets over with, and they move on. That's the way it should have been. That's the way it was scheduled to be. But then they said, hey, we got a weather delay. We gotta check this out and make sure it's good to go. Okay. But I was talking with Matt Moscona, who, of course, is covering all things LSU, and got to see a lot of pictures. There were no clouds in the sky. It was sunny. It was beautiful down there in Baton Rouge. And then
sunny with a threat of lightning.
I guess so. Like maybe that sunny lightning that comes down and everyone's so scared about. But like I'm sitting there, I was like, okay, well, maybe it struck. And then 30 minutes, we know the rule and all that. It went on for hours, and I mean hours and hours and hours that they just let this stay delayed until 8 o'clock or past 8 o'clock. I think it was 9 o'clock on Saturday. After like a 5-hour delay, they're like, all right, first pitch is coming up. Well, guess what happened as soon as they went out there to do the first pitch? It started raining, and it's just like the entire time it was sunny. I get that there are lightning that may be in the area and all that. Like I totally understand that, but people that were saying it's the weather people, I don't know. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think that it was all about who gets to make the call. Paul Skeens didn't want to run him out there only to pull him out. Like there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes, and I feel like they probably ended up equating a little bit more into it. But I just feel like when there's sunny skies outside and it goes on for hours and you're just waiting and sitting around. It happened in North Carolina last year in Chapel Hill when I was there, where at least it rained, but there was still times where we're sitting there, beautiful skies and sunny, and just not playing. I don't understand it. I think it's bad for the game, and I get television matters and ratings matter and all that, but that's just a really frustrating thing when you're trying to watch baseball and you see they do the update and they're like, hey, we're in the booth, and you look behind you and it looks like it's just, most beautiful day ever. It doesn't make any sense to me. That was the worst of the weekend for me.
There was a major league game yesterday, the Padres at Rockies, and the Rockies, they were leading at the time 4-3, and it's pouring raining. The Padres get up to the plate, hit a home run, tie the game at 4-4, and as soon as they tied it, they called it, they postponed, they came out with a tarp, went into a weather delay, but they were still on the field playing through pouring rain. But once they got the tie, then they said, all right, let's go ahead and stop it for a bit, and we'll come back and continue on. And then the Rockies end up winning the game with a walk-off.
So you can play in rain. Is it just the lightning that ends up being the issue, or is it rain that they'll also?
Rain is an issue because a lot of times you can't see the ball, and so that's unsafe for not only the batter but the fielders. If they can't see the ball, they can't react to it, and then you're taking a risk for injury also. Running around in the rain on a baseball field.
Yeah, I guess. Like I said, that part of it makes sense. It's just more like I don't want to see games get delayed if they're nice skies outside. And I'm sure somebody probably can correct me and say, well, this is why. And, there was lightning in the area and those were the problems that were going on there too. Like, I get it. But I feel like and baseball needs to be played in nice weather. And if it's nice weather, you need to get the game played, at least the best of your ability. Because that game would have been over by the time that they actually had first pitch go out. But anyways, I'm done with that. It just wasn't.
To a couple of things that we've discussed. Adam Hadwin getting tackled by security at the RBC Canadian Open.
For sure.
And Floyd Mayweather, John Gotti III, the brawl, the fight after the fight.
Mm-hmm. That's still, again, it was so weird seeing all the hockey fights and then the Conor McGregor deal. And then it's just like, man, people were feeling violent over this past weekend. Just feeling like they needed to mix it up with some people too. Didn't understand that at all. But yeah, that was a wild one. A few of those too. So in college baseball tonight, it's not a worst of the weekend, but it could end up being the worst for me. I really want to see Tennessee lose to Southern Miss tonight. And then Stanford and Texas, I don't care. Whatever happens. We'll see how it goes, but I don't know.
Yeah, winner of Stanford, Texas takes on Wake Forest in the College World Series. Winner of Southern Miss, Tennessee takes on LSU.
I don't really know. LSU's looking really good right now. TCU, of course, made it. Not surprising, but I don't know who to bet on right now. I guess we'll see once the field gets set officially in the final 8 teams and who will be taking that next step. But yeah, those are ones that TCU won it, LSU won it. I mean, even a team like Oral Roberts, if they ended up winning, that's what makes baseball so much fun. It's going to be a fun weekend in Omaha, or fun few weeks in Omaha. Wish we were there, but we're not. There's always next year, right? That's the way I'm going to put it. Let's go to the phone lines. Stats and Conway. What's up, Stat?
Hey, John. Hey, Joe. How's it going, fellas?
It's good.
It's good, man.
Hey, a quick question, and then I have a comment. Question is, watching the LSU Kentucky game, that Fitbit thing that the pitchers are wearing, is that so teams won't steal the signs nowadays?
The Fitbit thing? You say like on the wrist?
On the wrist, yeah, of the pitchers.
I'm sure it's just one of the things of like communicating that we've seen different baseball teams do, of pitching and where to go with the pitch. And yeah, probably trying to prevent anybody from possibly taking signs, something like that. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was kind of thinking, but I wasn't 100% sure. And John, after the weather delay, it did start raining at Alex Box Stadium.
Yeah. I know. That's what was so annoying about it.
No. After they came back from the actual weather delay, it was raining. It was raining home runs.
Man.
Oh, Stat. Good one, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they lit it up. Yesterday they kind of struggled, but they pulled it out. Hopefully Tennessee doesn't win. But if they do, I got a nice little friendly wager for Navy Negative Mike, and maybe it'll bring some peace and joy to the Buzz listeners.
I'm sure it will. So you feeling good about your Tigers to win it all then, Stat?
I don't know about winning it all, but I think they'll win at least the first game or two.
All right. Well, I wouldn't put it past them.
Wake looks strong. I kind of like the Oral Roberts deal that you're going with, just because they're a small school. And then TCU, somebody's got to catch them on a bad day.
Yeah. And hey, don't forget Florida too. I mean, they're the number 2 overall seed. They could take care of business. I mean, it's a really good field where I could see it going a lot of different ways for sure.
All right, fellas, y'all have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, Stud. Appreciate you calling in, man. It is Reaction Monday here on Out of Bounds, presented by Fleet Management Services, and we'll have more of your phone calls and text messages coming up next. So stay with us.
It's a great time to get to Twin Peaks for happy hour, 2 to 7. Later happy hour, 10 to close. Enjoy all the food and drink specials that go along with it. Get a lunch combo starting as low as $7.99. If you want to take some food to go, you can order online, curbside, or to go, courtesy of Postmates, DoorDash, and Uber Eats. Great drink specials during happy hour. Apps for $2, $4, and $6. And coming up Wednesday is National Bourbon Day. So you want to get by Twin Peaks and celebrate National Bourbon Day. They're going to have great specials going on National Bourbon Day on Wednesday. Another Customer Appreciation Day on Thursday. So a couple of days that you have some back-to-back great deals there at Twin Peaks. You get 6 wings for free by purchasing 6 wings and your choice of a drink, a 22-ounce draft, a soda, or tea. So you get that, and you get 6 great wings to go along with it for free. Twin Peaks has Miss Twin Peaks coming up, and they're going to have an in-store signing on Friday, and then the competition takes place the following week. We're going to have someone in from Twin Peaks on Thursday to talk about the in-store signing, the competition that's coming up there at Twin Peaks. And, of course, tonight you have Nuggets at Heat, Game 5 for the NBA Finals. Tomorrow night, Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers. It's Game 5. And you have a couple of teams in each series. The Nuggets, with a win, they'll advance on and win the NBA championship. Vegas Golden Knights, they're up 3-1 over the Florida Panthers. So they need one more win. Those are a couple of games that you can check out here in the next couple of days at Twin Peaks. And with College World Series, a couple of teams trying to advance. Stanford, Texas, that game is tonight. Also, Southern Miss, Tennessee. So plenty of sports action there at Twin Peaks. Wall-to-wall TVs to see it all, and plenty of seating inside and out. It's Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
It is a Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services here on Out of Bounds. And if you want to get in on the reactions, call or text in right now, 501-661-1037, as we'll have your Razor Hog update presented by True Service here in a bit too. But on the Asher Wrecker Live fan feedback, had a few people chiming in. Boss Hog says, I'm pulling for Oral Roberts right now. If Southern Miss gets in there, I'm pulling for them. It would be cool to see 3 Mississippi schools get their first natties back to back to back. So,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather Southern Miss have won 3 straight than see the other 2 schools in Mississippi win it. But no, that would be a pretty interesting thing where because I guess Southern Miss has got to it's the 3rd biggest school in Mississippi, right? Behind Ole Miss, Mississippi State. So the 3 biggest schools to win titles 3 straight years would be
something
impressive.
Cool.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, because I mean, we've seen 2 like in football. Alabama and Auburn won it back to back. I'm sure there's been more like just in history, maybe out of California or Texas or Florida, something like that. But yeah, in baseball, 3 straight from Mississippi of all places. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And also, Jack says, "Hey John, what happens to your house you had booked in Omaha? Did you get your money back?" Yes. Indeed. It was a pretty easy sell because let's be honest, if you have some place booked up there in Omaha and just say if it's an Airbnb and it's non-refundable, right? Well, here's what you do, because as soon as your team doesn't make it, all you do is just kind of re-Airbnb it, if it will, goes for a higher rate than what you booked it for, and everybody's happy because then somebody else actually gets to stay there. The owner of the Airbnb gets more money, and then it all works out in the end. So, yes, the answer to that question is yes, the money did come back. So, but that's honestly how you got to do it. You got to book it so far in advance to try to even get a decent place that's somewhere close, just because you got 8 teams coming in there, and you got 8 fan bases coming in there. On top of that, you got like Little League Baseball taking over the town too, because they have forgot what it's called, but it's some sort of Little League championship or tournament going on at the same time up there too. So you have all those teams with all those parents booking hotels. So it's all baseball that week in Omaha.
Everybody's going to need a place to stay too. So not at all a problem.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like if with Omaha, I don't know this, and it's a fine city, but I feel like they probably make their worth for the entire year, economically speaking, over the College World Series week, just because of how many people are coming in, how much business they're making from, whether it's restaurants or bars or any place like that, and hotels especially is the same way. So yeah, they're doing just fine up there too. But I guess I guess it might be one of the last great championships that are staying in the same city. Because you think about in college football and basketball, it's moving around. NFL, of course, moves around. NBA just depends on who's the teams in it. Baseball, same thing. But hockey, same thing. So sometimes you have the home court, home ice, home field advantage. But Omaha and college baseball is like the last one that actually is still always in the same spot each and every year. And I feel like it's just a matter of time before they change that too and start making some bids.
It's a nice tradition to have, and they built a new stadium in the last few years, and so they put a lot into it to make sure that they're able to accommodate and have a lot of people coming in.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a growing sport. College baseball has become, and I guess softball too is in Oklahoma City, so it's kind of the same concept in college. It's in the same spot there, but I don't know. I'm
A lot of
torn.
people complain about that one also because of how dominant Oklahoma is, and they're essentially playing a home game. They're playing in their own backyard, not too far from the campus.
Yeah, but my thing is like whose fault is that? Like it's not Oklahoma's fault. Like you think Oklahoma City and it being set up there, they're like started going behind the scenes. They're like, all right, but we're gonna have this, but also we need to have all of the different teams from Oklahoma in here as well. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State also gets the College World Series in softball too. I don't think there's some sort of conspiracy behind that. Just that'd be like saying if Nebraska was being so dominant in baseball, they're like, oh, there's some sort of connection up there in Omaha that they're wanting Nebraska in there. No, just other teams need to be better. need to go in there and take care of business themselves. That's not Oklahoma's fault. Because how far is Oklahoma City from Norman? It's not far at all. I don't think.
No, it's not. It's like 45 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that far.
Yeah, I knew it was close by, so yeah, I don't blame anybody for that. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Let's go to the phone lines. JK's in Fairfield Bay. What's up, JK?
Hey guys, with out Arkansas fans here, I'm wondering how many Jello shots they're going to serve up there this year, and I'll hang up.
This might be your best question ever, JK. How many Jello shots they're going to have up there? I don't know. It was absurd amount last year, and I keep thinking that it's never going to be more than what it was the previous year, and then it ends up being more. Like I don't know. That there's so much money that they make off of those, and they think of the story last year where they gave a lot of it to charities of the teams, or at least the town, the cities where the teams are located, to some of the charities that they have there. So it's not like they're just pocketing all the money. They are doing some really cool stuff with it. Rocco's is the place it's called, by the way.
And that's what entices people to get more involved. And especially you want your school represented to say that this is the school that stood out. And of course, the longer you're there in Omaha, the more likely one of those fan bases are going to be the ones that emerge at the top, because after a while, if your team loses, you're probably out of there.
Yeah, you're bounced out. In fact, Rocco's has been putting up the names each time whenever somebody gets added into the College World Series deal as well. It was just stupid. Like last year when I was up there would be a guy, and I'll never forget. I tried to talk to him, but he was a little he had been enjoying himself over the day, so he wasn't all there. But he just walked in and said, "All right, here's $1,000. Buy all the Arkansas Jello shots and hand them out." And I was just like shocked by that. I was like, wow, this guy's walking in and just putting $1,000 down on Jello shots for everybody else to drink. And I was talking to the bartender about it. I was like, that's absurd. They're like, you kidding me? Last night we had a guy that dropped $5,000 just drawing Jello shots. I'm like, how? Why? I get it. I guess if you got money, if you can spend that type of money, it's great. But that's how those numbers got so high. Is it wasn't like individual people buying all the shots. You just have a bunch of like random people who would buy an inordinate amount and just say, hand them out to whoever you want. And that's why it became such a large number after that too. Man.
And then somebody from another fan base feels challenged and they step up and they do something similar. So that's how it kind of takes off.
Yeah. If you want to know the for last year's count, because again, that was all the rage. But if you were looking to see how much that Ole Miss actually ended up with, which is not surprising because it is Ole Miss and they like to party it up and they like to go crazy with it. They ended up with 18,777 shots bought just for Ole Miss. 18,777. I don't know if anybody gets to that point this year. That's a lot. That broke the record by a lot. And Arkansas actually came in second with 8,000 shots, and 27,000 shots were sold over that 2 week span.
So between Arkansas and Ole Miss, that's where the majority went.
Yeah, because I'm trying to do the math in my head real quick.
That's 26,
Yeah.
18 and 8.
So I guess all it shows is that there's some places that are more spirited than the others when it comes to their Jello shots, and Arkansas and Ole Miss are the ones that were bringing it too. But yeah, because Texas A&M was in it, they bought 1,000. It looks like Oklahoma was almost 1,000. The one that had the least amount was actually Texas. You can believe it, 3019 last year too. So, but again, this is the story that I'm reading. They donated of all that 27,000 shots that were sold. $55,000 were donated to the two universities' local food banks. So for Arkansas and Ole Miss, those were donated there too. So again, it's a really good cause. It's just, I don't know. I don't think it has the same luster that it did a few years ago when it was such a new thing and all that. But I don't know. Maybe people will challenge themselves this year to get to 18,000 or 19,000 or however many it'll be.
The early clubhouse leader would be LSU because their fans go to the College World Series every year, whether LSU was in it or not. Now, it depends on how far they go, how deep they get into the College World Series, if the numbers really get up there for the LSU fan base.
Oh, if I was banking on somebody, don't underestimate those Tigers. They'll find a way to get to that amount, especially if they go deep into the College World Series. We're going to have the Razor Hog update, though, presented by True Service coming up next. We'll keep it moving. I know Andrew Hutchinson's going to be joining us here in about 20 minutes, so looking forward to catching up with him. Keep moving on out of bounds on Reaction Monday, presented by Fleet Management Services. So stay with us. So Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services here on Out of Bounds. We're going to have your Razor Hog update, give some few news, especially with softball. I have some pretty big news here recently as well. And by the way, speaking of college baseball, I guess Alabama is hiring Maryland's head coach, Rob Vaughn, who reached 3 straight NCAA regionals with the Terps and winning 48 and 42 games respectively in the past 2 seasons. I guess it's a pretty solid hire, at least Kendall Rogers says so. I don't know. I feel like they should have. I don't know. That guy, yeah, man. They went to the Supers, and they had to take on Wake Forest. They hosted a regional and a Super, or they hosted a regional, went to the Super, and Wake Forest took care of business. But I felt like that coach who took over, given the circumstances, did an outstanding job of getting them to about where they needed to be and advancing far. So I don't know. They'll probably get another job somewhere else, and maybe gets added into the mix. But yeah, apparently. They've all moved pretty fast when it comes to those coaching carousels. Baseball moves a lot faster in college than it does like the football and basketball side of things, because apparently Maryland's already got their coach and they promoted their assistant coach to there too. So move pretty fast when it comes to who's missing and who's checking out there.
Football
too.
a lot of times has to move fast because of recruiting purposes.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's something that always is a factor,
especially with the early signing period that happens right there in December. You got to get somebody quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so it makes it very chaotic there, too, which there might be a rule that they end up changing here eventually, but we'll just have to wait and see. So let's go ahead and jump into your Razor Hog update presented by True Service.
Guys, I've got just one thing I want to say to you. Touchdown, Arkansas!
Arkansas wins the national championship! The Arkansas Razorbacks have completed a dream season!
Odds by 90!
This is your Razor Hog update on Out of Bounds, presented by True Service Community Federal Credit Union, where they offer new mortgage loans, refinancing, auto loans, and small business loans. Online at trueservice.net.
All right, so for your Razor Hog update, no update on Grant Nelson, so stop asking. Kind of like what I want to do Nick Saban voice over there, because that's everybody's just waiting with bated breath. Don't really know just anything yet, but don't worry. As soon as we find something out, we'll let you know. But still, some Razorback baseball news. Congratulations to Hagen Smith and Brady Tigert, as they will be attending the USA Baseball Collegiate National Team Training Camp, which features 56 of the premier non-draftable eligible players for a 4-game Stars versus Stripes intra-squad series from June 25th to June 28th. So it's kind of like, in a matter of sorts, a college all-star game for guys that can't be drafted just yet. So if you get invited to that and you play in that, it means you're one of the top of the guys that's going to be coming back to college next season. So
that's a big deal. It's an honor.
Oh, yeah.
That players look forward to.
Yeah. You got 2 pitchers that are going to be there into the mix. Absolutely. And we know they're going to be hitting the transfer portal to get some guys, but they also had somebody that hit the transfer portal from the baseball team just recently, today. And we'll talk about this more with Andrew Hutchinson too, but Harold Cole, the player that would step in at shortstop and was coming in also trying to compete for that shortstop role, but they gave it to John Bolton. He is entering into the portal and going to be moving on. So not surprising with a lot of these players. Every year you're going to have portal guys. He ends up being the latest one, and we'll see if they have any more people leaving. But I will say, in some good news for Razorback softball, pretty wild that they just got a big-time transfer with Nia Carter. Now, for those of you that don't follow softball and may not know who Nia Carter is, she's the transfer from Iowa. She's the Big Ten's hits leader, as well as an All-American this past year. And on top of that, she hit .405 with 20 multi-hit games this past season. She's officially signed with Arkansas. So transfers are always really big in sports that we talk about with football, basketball, baseball, but even softball too. They've had a lot of success of getting some big-time players. And just imagine that. Like, you're literally the hits leader and you're an All-American, and you get that player now on your team. That's a big gift for Courtney and Eifel and their squad as well. Also, in some track news, we had Bob Holt on last week and talking about track. I'm going to just sit here and act like I know a little bit about this appointment when it comes to that, but neither Arkansas men or women's were able to finish if a championship in the outdoor track, as women's track finishes third in their final meet with Lance Harder at the helm. We know he's retiring and moving on. But Arkansas, like in men's track, they had it. They had the lead. They had it going on. Seemed like it was all just there, plumb ready for the picking. but the Razorbacks were unable to hold on. Now, and to take this to another level, they finished second, and Florida, the Gators, finished first. So put this into your pipe and smoke it, because Arkansas was dominating. They had 149 points in Baton Rouge through 20 of 21 events at the NCAA Outdoor Championships on Friday night. The Razorbacks were in position to go 4 for 4 when it comes to their championship season. They were leading 20 through 21, and they had 52 points, and Florida had 47. But the last event, the 1,600-meter relay, Florida set the event's collegiate record earlier the season, while Arkansas made the NCAA tournament final by finishing 8th in the semifinals. And there you go. Just you got to finish. It's about how you finish. And there's nothing wrong with finishing second. You know, it's a silver medal, you will, in the Olympics. But when you're leading like that, got to finish it off. So
setting a record is always going to go a long way in helping you win.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when you do it in that biggest moment and when you need it the most, it's going to make it that much more special as well. So also in some women's basketball news, Mike Nabors, we know that he's a they got to get it going over there with the women's basketball team, because they know that they have had a lot of opportunities to possibly take it to that next level of being a team that makes a deep run in the NCAA tournament. They've yet to get to that point. But one thing that Mike Nabors has been talking about is the amount of players he's having coming back next season, and not a whole lot of turnover, while also adding in some pieces. So they feel pretty confident about the squad that they have coming in. He understands that it's a very important year for his squad, but considering how many guys, or how many girls in this case, enter into the transfer portal and end up going somewhere else, for him to have complete and total, continuation of the guys and the girls that he's got on his staff, as well as also on his team, is going to be huge for them. And I'll be here before we know it. So there you have it. There's your Razor Hog update, presented by True Service. And we look forward to hoping tomorrow has a little Grant Nelson interesting thing. How about that? Oh, okay. So if you listened to the show earlier, you know what you have to do right now, because that's the song. That's the music that you got going on right now, too. So that's going to be a great concert that's coming up, and we'll keep it moving as we're up against it already, because we have Andrew Hutchinson of the Best of Arkansas Sports joining us next. Talk to him about the latest baseball news, what he thinks about Grant Nelson, and what kind of moves and changes will be happening within the baseball program itself. But we'll keep it moving here on Out of Bounds. So stay with us on a Reaction Monday, presented by Fleet Management Services.
I said I love you and I swear I still do.
2 hours down, 1 hour to go. Appreciate everybody listening in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. John Nabors, Joe Franklin, broadcasting live from the Hogs Meat Market Studios with you today. And thank you, as always, for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon. It's been a great reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services. And like I talked about on the zone, we were going to have Gus Arginal on the show today, former Razorback basketball assistant, and a guy who has gotten a new job and out on the West Coast, which we're really happy for him. And he had to cancel on us at the last minute, but he is going to be joining us on Thursday. So we look forward to having Coach Gus Arginal. And I made the joke to him. I was like, it's only fitting that he came on our show when he was first hired at Arkansas and has to come on a show when he gets hired at a different job. So we look forward to catching up with him on Thursday too and diving into that. And also on Wednesday, we teased this on social media, but Walker Martin is going to be joining us on Wednesday at 3:05. And for those of you who don't know, Walker Martin is one of the most prized pickups for Arkansas when it comes to the high school baseball rankings. He's a top 20 prospect, probably going to get drafted. And if he does, he may be moving on, but he really likes Arkansas. And he's a shortstop that Dave Van Horn has been big on from Colorado. And so he's going to join us to talk about his decision-making and what it will take to keep him at Arkansas, or is it going to be just all Arkansas all the time? So we got a few really good guests that are going to be coming up and joining us throughout this week. Because I'll admit it, Joe, I did not know much about baseball recruiting. I still don't really. But I heard about this. I met this Walker Martin kid actually on his visit this past year during the football season. And when I saw the recruiting rankings that were put out and seeing some of the guys that were listed, and we even talked about it, he was one of those top 20 prospects. So, yeah, I'm sure if you're Dave Van Horn, you're hoping that he can come to campus and make it to campus and play for you for the next 3 years, because that would be a nice little get at that shortstop position.
That's always how you go about it for baseball recruiting. You go after the top players, but you realize that there's a chance they go to the MLB draft and they go the minor league route as opposed to going to college.
Oh, yeah. And I think with what's going on in college sports, and it's a lot tougher to just jump to Major League Baseball, maybe what it has been before. Still not saying that it's not the right move or anything, because if you sign a $1.5 million contract, it's hard to say no to. But
well, it's almost about you know, we talk about options all the time, but at that point, do you choose to go to college for 3 years, delaying that you're still going to have to go through the minor league system, or do you go through the minor league system right away, take the money, and try to get to MLB level a lot sooner?
Yeah, because that's a decision I couldn't imagine making as a 17, 18-year-old kid. Like, I mean, that's pretty big time. But like I said, he'll be joining us on Wednesday. So let's talk a little bit more about baseball, basketball, all the side of things with Razorback Sports as we go to the Jones and Sun Diamond and Bridal Fine Jewelry Hotline and welcome in Andrew Hutchinson of bestofarkansassports.com and friend of the show. And Andrew, as always, man, appreciate you joining us this afternoon. How you doing?
Doing good. Glad I could pinch hit for Coach Arginal.
Yeah, that's right. You always stepping up to the game, man. We always appreciate it. And I know that we've talked a lot of recapping of baseball and everything too, and so we don't really need to dive into that. But I will ask you, just as far as the recruiting classes for baseball and maybe some of the transfers that are going on. We talked a little bit about in texting back and forth. That's a tough thing for any coach to do, but with Arkansas having the number one recruiting class in the country, it seems like it's going to be really tough to try to keep a lot of those guys on staff for being on the team next year. So how do you feel like Dave Van Horn, how do you feel like this class plays out when you have so many prospects that could get drafted, but you're also hoping that they make it to campus if you're Dave Van Horn?
Well, this is where Dave Van Horn really makes his paycheck, if we're being honest. You could make the case that the actual coaching of the game is probably easier than the roster management when it comes to college baseball, and especially at a program like Arkansas, where you're recruiting these high caliber high school kids that, you know, like Walker Martin, like Aiden Miller, like some of these other guys are high caliber draft prospects, guys that could go pro straight out of high school. But you're also trying to balance, you know, who you got coming back. You know, hey, can we convince so-and-so to come back for another year, like a Hunter Holland, or, you know, even somebody like a Peyton Holt or Ben McLaughlin, guys that didn't play a whole lot this past year, but they're draft eligible. You know, we remember Charlie Welch a few years ago was the ultimate pinch hitter, never really started much, but still got drafted and signed professionally after 1 year. So you got to balance that. You've got to balance, the transfer portal, guys that are leaving, guys that you're trying to bring in from the transfer portal. So it's going to be really tough, and really you're probably not going to know what it looks like until maybe mid-July, after the draft. We'll probably kind of have a good idea of, okay, who got drafted where. If a guy gets drafted in the first 10 rounds, you can pretty much say he's going to leave. I think maybe over the last couple of years, there's been maybe one or two guys that got drafted in the top 10 rounds who ended up, not signing and going to college or coming back to college. If they get drafted rounds 11 through 20, then it's like, okay, are they going to get enough money to say, okay, I'm going to sign professionally, or are they going to, make it to school? So it's really, really difficult. Arkansas's got, I want to say 13 top 100 recruits signed in this class, which is just incredible, using perfect games numbers. Last year, I want to say 57% of the top 100 ended up actually making it to school. So you use that percentage, you're looking at maybe, 7, maybe 8 guys make it to campus. If they get that would be phenomenal. But even if they only get 4 or 5, that would still be a pretty good haul for Arkansas.
For Hunter Holland, a guy who will have a decision to make as far as if he's going to go MLB or return to Arkansas, how much of a factor will the surgery that he had play into his next decision?
I think it's definitely going to be a factor because it's going to impact, maybe what the pro scouts are willing to pay him. I guess y'all had him on your show last week, and I heard him say, like, hey, don't be surprised if I come back to Arkansas. And I was just like, why? That just doesn't make any sense. Like, unless he's just using it as leverage, like, hey, pro scouts, I'm actually considering going, coming back to school, so you better pay me more money. That could be what's at play. And then, a couple days later, he announces he has the surgery. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe there is something to it. But even with the surgery, he would still be leaving quite a bit of money on the table, because you're looking at, I think he's like number 83 on MLB Pipeline's top 200 prospects. If he gets drafted in that range, he's looking at like an $800,000 signing bonus. Whereas if you're a senior, and even if you have an incredible year, you're probably, think back to Carson Shaddy in 2018. He had an incredible senior season for Arkansas, but I think he only got like a $10,000 signing bonus because he had no leverage. They were like, hey, you can't do anything other than sign with us unless you just want to quit baseball altogether. So that's why he got such a low signing bonus. Even a guy like Kevin Cox, who was the best pitcher in America his last year at Arkansas, he was a senior, technically had some leverage because he could have come back to school, but even he got way under slot value for his third-round draft slot. I think he got like 100, maybe, I can't remember exactly how many, $100,000, whatever it was. But it was still well below the slot value. So that's kind of what's at play here. Even if he falls in the draft because of the surgery and only gets, say, $500,000, that's still a whole lot more than $10,000 or $20,000, even if he comes back and pitches lights out next year.
Yeah, we know the Hunter Holland thing. That's what we do here on Out of Bounds. We give people money and give them leverage to get extra money. That's what we're in the business of here. But no, you're right, and you're going through it all, and that's what's kind of a crazy but frustrating thing I can imagine for a baseball player, because it's almost like you go out as a high school kid, or as soon as you're draft eligible, you got to make that jump. You talk about it where it's like, okay, high school or college. Or coming out of high school, college, pros, whatever, you got a decision to make. But then after year 3 in college, suddenly you have like 4 different options of how you're going to do this. Sometimes it's transferring. It's a crazy thing to where you're trying to balance that out. And I don't even know how as a player, like, and maybe you can give some examples this year, like who are some guys on this Razorback roster that you feel like have a very important decision to make. And it's a lot tougher than maybe what people even realize.
Yeah, I think the decisions that I think are going to really be the big ones are guys like Peyton Holt, trying to think, Ben McLaughlin, as I said, Zach Morris is a guy that could come back, as a super senior, probably not going to get, too many draft looks because he struggled for most of the year, was pretty good down the stretch until the regional. Will McIntyre is another one who, could technically get drafted, or come back as a I believe he'd be a fifth-year senior. I can't remember if he might have another year of leverage as well. I'm not 100% sure off that on top of my head. But, that's another one. I've heard some people maybe kick around Caleb Cali as a guy who could come back. I just don't see it because he was so good for Arkansas. I mean, he hit over 300. Take out his really slow start, where he went like 0 for 12 before getting a hit. He was probably the best hitter, most consistent hitter on the team, aside from those first few weeks of the season. So I would see him, getting drafted and signing unless he just really likes college baseball or whatever. But, at least with the other guys I mentioned, I mean, Holt, McIntyre, Morris, those are also in-state kids. And so I feel like there's more of a chance, like a Carson Shaddy I mentioned back in 2018 when he came back. He's a local kid. He grew up cheering for the Razorbacks, wants to play for the Razorbacks, wanted to try to win a national title for the Razorbacks. I could see that being a similar thing at play with those other in-state kids when they ultimately make their decision. We saw it a little bit last year. I mean, Zach Morris is a guy that Dave Van Horn said probably had some opportunities to sign last year. He had a pretty big numbers last year, but he ultimately decided to come back as a senior. He could make that same decision this year as well. So just some interesting things to kind of keep an eye on, and I'm really anxious. Hopefully we'll get to hear from Dave Van Horn in a couple of weeks and see kind of where his feelings and thoughts are on some of those guys as well, because that's going to be a big part of what this roster is going to look like next year.
With that number one recruiting class and some of the incoming freshmen, if you will go through some of the players that you expect that they will make it to campus and then some you really don't expect to make it to campus.
Well, it's probably easier to say who's probably not going to make it to campus. I think the first one you got to mention is Aiden Miller. He's a guy that I believe at least at one point was like a top 5 recruit overall in this class, and he's still being projected as a first-round draft pick, probably going to get drafted and make a whole lot of money. We're talking 7-figure signing bonus. So he's probably not going to make the campus. It's a bummer because he's a tremendous player. Then you look beyond that. I want to say that top 200 draft prospects list, which includes college and high school kids, I think has 9 Arkansas signees on it in the top 200, which I never remember there being that many on there. We talked about Walker Martin already. He's a guy to keep an eye on. Ryder Helfrich, he's a catcher. Boy, would it be nice to get him to campus because, you could use a catcher that's really, really good. I mean, you've got, Parker Rowland and Hudson Polk technically could come back, but wouldn't you like a guy that could hit over 200 while also being a good catcher behind the plate? So he's a guy to really keep an eye on. There's several pitchers. Gabe Gackle is a guy. One to keep an eye on is maybe coming to school is Adam Hockman. He's from Missouri, a lefty. He's already touched triple digits on the radar gun. But he recently had, I believe, Tommy John, I want to say before the season, and David Horn has actually mentioned him as a guy like, hey, because he had Tommy John, maybe he decides to come to school, probably isn't able to pitch in 2024, but then the next 2 years after that, you have this guy that could be a big-time arm for you. So maybe he's a guy to maybe keep an eye on that would have a legitimate reason to turn down the money and come to school and prove that he can come back healthy after that surgery.
So either Andrew Hutchinson of Best of Arkansas Sports here on the Jones and Sun Diamond and Bridal Fine Jewelry Hotline. Andrew, I had a conversation with some friends of mine just about pitching this upcoming season, and we mentioned about Brady Tigert and Hagen Smith getting put on that Team USA training camp, and got guys like that. It looks like Will McIntyre will be a guy that comes back from what I understand, and you got a Gage Wood, and you got a few pieces that are going to be in the mix, and even some guys that may be added in, but how do you feel about the pitching staff going into next season? Can it be better than what it was this past year? Obviously, it was really about health, but what does that pitching staff look like? And maybe are there some guys that moving on, like a Jackson Wiggins, that could end up coming back, or does he move on? Just what do you think it looks like next year?
Yeah, I think Jackson Wiggins is probably going to move on. I've heard that he's still probably going to get a decent draft, top 5 rounds. And plus, even if he wanted to come back, if he was just dead set on, hey, I want to pitch for the Razorbacks, the timeline just really doesn't work out because he had Tommy John right before the start of the season, and it's usually a little bit over a year in terms of recovery from that, and it would probably be halfway through the season before he's able to really return, and even then it's not full strength, and who knows what kind of pitcher he would be as he works his way back. Usually you need to be a little bit more further removed from Tommy John where you really return to your former self. So I would not count on Jackson Wiggins being back. But that said, if everybody else stays healthy, if you have Hagan, Smith, Brady, Tigert as a 1-2 punch in your starting rotation on the weekend, that's pretty good. I mean, that honestly makes me really excited to see what they could look like next year, because those two dudes, Brady Tigert, proved, especially in the postseason, that he can be a starting pitcher. He's not just a closer. So you throw him in there with Hagan Smith, and if Hagan can really kind of get to where he's a little bit more efficient, can maybe work 6 or 7 innings instead of 5 or 6, he could be really, really good. I mean, he was a first-team All-SEC selection and is probably in the conversation for pitcher of the year if the LSU guy, his name is escaping me at the moment, Paul Skeens, doesn't exist this year. You know, he's probably in contention for SEC pitcher of the year. So having those two guys back, and, you know, if Gage Wood can return to his earlier season self, I mean, but we saw this last year with Brady Tigert, you know, was really dominant all year, and then at the very end of the season, he kind of hit that freshman wall. I think that's maybe what happened with Gage Wood. You know, if some of those other freshmen kind of develop, like a Christian Fouch or a Ben Bybee or Parker Coyle, if some of those guys take that next step, and then if you get some of these freshmen in and maybe add a transfer or two, the pieces are there. You know, with a Will McIntyre, potentially as Zach Morris, they, you know, pitch like they did the back half of the season, then that's a pretty good pitching rotation, solid pitching staff if everybody stays healthy. I think that's what killed them this year was the health. I really believe this year's staff could have been special if Wiggins had stayed healthy, Tigert hadn't had to miss time. You know, Cody Frank, that's another guy that's coming back. Cody Frank in the bullpen. If all those guys, Dylan Carter, if those guys had all stayed healthy, I think the pitching staff would have looked much, much different this year and been a lot better. One of the best in the country, in my opinion.
Andrew, with Grant Nelson making his decision between Arkansas and Bama, what have you heard about the visit and how that went with Grant Nelson visiting Arkansas?
I mean, I've probably heard what everybody else has heard, that it was a really good visit, and now we're just kind of in wait and see mode. I've reached the point of where it is with some recruits where I'm just like, man, I'm just ready for a decision to be made, because, you know, who really knows what's going to happen at this point? I mean, he's probably back home with his family in North Dakota, and what else is there to do in North Dakota but think about what your future is going to be? And hopefully we'll be hearing a decision sooner rather than later, and they can kind of put the finishing touches on this roster for Arkansas, because with or without him, they've got a really talented roster. But if you add him to the mix, then you ramp up the expectations once again going into a season. Hopefully we just get answers, first and foremost.
Well, and that's the funny thing that we had somebody text in earlier in the show. They're like, why do people feel like the longer it gets drawn out, the better it is for Arkansas? Is that something that you feel like, or is there anything to that? Like, why is it getting drawn out to where it's like, oh, it's Saturday or Monday or Sunday or Monday, and it ends up being neither. Now it's going to be tomorrow, maybe. We don't know. Is that good or bad for anybody, or is it just some kid that's trying to make a decision and needs as much time as possible?
I really think it's just some kid trying to make his decision. I mean, this is a huge decision for him. I mean, he has the goal of playing in the NBA, and Alabama and Arkansas both probably offer him a really good opportunity to do that, a whole heck of a lot more than North Dakota State. So I really don't. I wouldn't put too much stock into how long the decision is taking. But then again, typically when things get drawn out, if you're an Arkansas fan, you're used to things going badly when they can. Everyone thought Ron Holland was going to be a hog, myself included at one point, and the kid got drawn out, and boom, he goes to the G League. And I don't think that's necessarily an option for Grant Nelson, but he could go to Alabama, and then you have to face him once or twice next year, which would really stink if you're Arkansas, considering you thought that you had a really good chance to get him. So I don't know if it really favors one team or the other in terms of how long the process is taken.
Well, I'm sure whatever the decision is, everyone will be very rational and very even-keeled and even level-headed about it, and it won't be a big deal at all. So hopefully we find out here very soon. But Andrew, as always, man, we appreciate you joining us. Great stuff. You can follow him on Twitter at NWA Hutch and follow him on all of his work at Best of Arkansas Sports. Enjoy the rest of the week, man, and we'll be catching up with you later down the road.
Sounds good anytime.
All right, appreciate it. Again, that was Andrew Hutchinson joining us on the Jones & Son Diamond and Bridal Fine Jewelry Hotline. take a commercial break and come back with more Out of Bounds. So stay with us. It's Out of Bounds on a Reaction Monday. And folks, it's been a couple years since Guadney Chevrolet deployed Deal Team 6. And this time they're armed with a virtual arsenal of rebates, discounts, and finance offers on new models, all in stock, up to $7,500 off. Silverado's in stock with 2009 or newer trade-in. Get $2,000 off in stock 2023 Equinox. Plus, rates on everything new in stock as low as 6.99%. It's all offers, of course, approved with credit. And they're also not only dealing that with the Silverados with 2009 or newer trade-in values, but also 5.9% for 72 months on Silverados when financing with GM and well-qualified buyers. Everything new as low as 6.99% through GM Financial, and they still got plenty of pre-owned vehicles that are good enough for mom. Plenty of inventory there as well, and it's all at Guadney Chevrolet. So you can find them today at the Gregory Street exit in Jacksonville. You can shop them online at GuadneyChevrolet.com. And if you need the actual address to put it in your phone, you can do that too. 1301 TP White Drive in Jacksonville. No matter where it's at, it is Guadney Chevrolet, Arkansas's #1 Chevy dealer, Guadney Chevrolet, and GuadneyChevrolet.com. And wow, perfectly timed. We have some breaking news here on the show, folks. We have Grant Nelson update. And according to Joe Tipton, as well as others, Grant Nelson has officially committed to the University of Alabama. So he will not be a Razorback, according to sources. So there you have it. I guess there goes that pipe dream, too. Missing out on Ron Holland, now missing out on Grant Nelson. Got to be a frustrating thing, but, as it's kind of been laid out with the difference between the two and the situations and the setups and all that, looks like he felt like Alabama was the place for him. So that's where he is going to be taking his talents to Tuscaloosa.
So Arkansas has one remaining scholarship, and they may choose to leave it open. And if you do that, then one of the walk-ons could possibly benefit from being on scholarship.
That's right. Yeah, we've seen that happen before, but we also know that there's still some people in the portal right now. Don't know if it's anybody of note that Arkansas would be interested in or anything like that, but it certainly looks like that they're going to have at least some maneuverability around there to try to figure it out. So,
well, the word has been that they're not going to just fill the scholarship just for the purpose of filling it. It would be a player like a Grant Nelson, somebody they feel good about that they want to give that scholarship to.
Yeah, I think that with what came to light in recent days, especially, and we were discussing it with people not only throughout the past week, but also seeing things on social media. Is the one thing that Nelson really wanted was, of course, playing time and the NIL and the thing that gets ready for the NBA and all that stuff. But also, he got sold, for at least from the reports in his visit to Alabama, that he was going to be the guy. He was going to be the guy that they run the offense through. They was going to be the guy that was going to be, everything kind of teetered around him and adjusted to him where it all runs through him. And I think that just basing it off of some of the reports, that was a huge selling point for him. Where at Arkansas, not to say that he couldn't have had success at university, but was he going to be the guy as soon as he stepped on campus? Well, you got Trevor Brazile that would have something to say about it. You have some other transfers that would have something to say about it too. And so him going to Alabama, that may have been one of the things that really sold the deal for him. So, again, it's like, would you have liked? I would have loved to have seen Grant Nelson at Arkansas for sure. It would have been awesome. But, you still got a really good team, and you still got a really good amount of guys that are surrounding him. And I think that it may be something that works out best for everybody involved. Works out best for Nelson being at Bama, and works out best for Arkansas moving on without it. So there you have it. There's the news. He hasn't made it official, by the way. He hasn't come out on social media and said anything. But Joe Tipton and On3 and 24/7 Sports, people that are really in the know and really know this stuff, they're the ones that's reporting that he's going to be moving on and taking it to Alabama. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but as it goes, move on. And we didn't want him anyways, right? And that the mentality everyone takes. We didn't want him anyways. Moving on from that, something like that. I don't know. But also in some other Razorback news that actually just happened, and on a lighter note too, Jordan Weber just signed a new agreement with the University of Arkansas for a 3-year contract. Hunter Yurchek just tweeted this one out. And she has, of course, been in the program for quite a few years. And she signed a new 3-year agreement. Now, this is what's confusing. I think it may just be a typo because the official statement says that she has and signed a new employment agreement that positions her to stay at the helm of the gym backs through the 2028 season. But it goes on to say that the new 3-year contract runs from July 1st of 2023 to April 30th of 2026. So the contract, at least that's been signed there,
It's an extension.
yeah, is through there for that contract, and then the additional incentive payments will be based on the team's success in the SEC and NCAA competition, graduation rate, as well as the recognition of Coach Weaver as conference and/or national coach of the year honor. So built in with a lot of incentives to come along with it too. But she just finished her 4th season, and they had one of the best years that they've had previously, and she apparently really loves it at Arkansas and wants to stick around and wants to continue to coach the gym backs for the next few years. So good
Done
for
a
them.
great job, and they're always continually improving. So that's what you want to see from the coach. The team continues to get better, and she gets rewarded because of that.
Yeah, I keep forgetting, like, just how impactful she is in the game of gymnastics and everything. But I love at the end of the statement, it says a member of the Fierce Five, because that's what they were. The United States squad that won gold medals in 2012 in the Olympics. She was also the 2-time U.S. all-around champion in 2011 and 2012. So that's always a good selling point when you're a coach of any regard, is if you're a big-time, highly successful player, or was when you were playing, but also to go into an individual meet and you're also coaching it at the college level. It's something I'm sure that people who are in the recruiting process see that, and that's a huge selling point for them to be able to be coached by Jordan Weaver.
Absolutely, because she's somebody that's been at the top of the game, and name recognition goes a long way to people that are thinking about going to the next destination. And we see it happen in all sports, and this is another case of it with gymnastics.
Yep. First Arkansas Bank and Trust text line, because of course we were talking about the news of Grant Nelson reportedly going to Alabama. It seems like a reason. We talked about the reasonable and rational type of statements, and Mike says, "Have a feeling that Anthony Black and Jordan Walsh are talking to these guys behind closed doors, telling them everything or something about the program and the staff. Even Hoop Scoop has said that these guys were locks, and he's usually spot on. So sad. Must has turned into Dave Van Horn. Dave Van Horn is nothing but a bad apple for Arkansas, and teaching other coaches being notable is good enough. Him and the high school kid were apparent locks until the end. Have feeling Anthony Black and Walsh are talking to these guys." I think you just repeated yourself twice. So, yeah. But, I mean, I don't know if that's going on. I don't know what was said. I don't know what – like, here's the thing. I don't know if that would be anybody talking behind closed doors, because they're going on visits to these places. Like Grant Nelson came to Arkansas, went on an official visit. And that's not something that after the visit, then, somebody would reach out to him and tell him something negative. I don't think that would be the case, but I think it would be naive to think that there wasn't some sort of negative recruiting into the mix of probably Nate Oates saying, "Hey, this is what these guys said." They said that, and Jordan Walsh said he was handcuffed at Arkansas. Do you want to be handcuffed at Arkansas? Like, it's all, that type of political game where you're just trying to find any sort of advantage you can have over the other team too.
What do all players want? All players want playing time, and especially if they get in the transfer portal, they're not satisfied with what is currently going on with them, and they want to be able to improve going somewhere else. And then we talk about it quite a bit, that there's no guarantee on playing time at Arkansas. And so that's something that, any school out there can use to negative recruit against Arkansas. Also, that you're going to have to go there and maybe take a chance on being on the bench.
Yep. Because if you're a transfer like Grant Nelson, it's like, this is your last hurrah. Like, you don't like, oh, okay, well, if this year doesn't work out, or if it's not what I thought, I could just move on somewhere else. It's like, no, this is your one shot, and you want to be at a place to where you get featured and you get put in a position to where you can take that next step forward. And you're going to make that decision on where you go based on who is providing you, or at least who is telling you that you'll have that opportunity to do so. And at Arkansas, they've had a winning formula when they get into March, and they've had a lot of success. And I love Eric Musselman. He's a great coach and has really taken Arkansas to a whole new level when it comes to the game of basketball. But, there are places that are just going to go along with how they're approaching it, and any sort of advantage that they can get in a highly competitive nature like it is in conference recruiting. So I don't know. I feel like with what he's done, and I'm talking about what he's done, especially he's about to get 4 players drafted, that'll be something of note. But who knows? Maybe transfer portal needs to be where he really makes his money at and really continues to hit hot and heavy, because those are the guys and those are the teams that seems to have the most success under Eric Musselman, even dating back to when he was at Nevada as well. So I don't know. Have a mix of both, maybe.
Yeah, it's always going to be two ways to look at it, and we know that that's part of his philosophy, where he looks at players in the transfer portal as free agents, and he looks at high school players like drafted players and new incoming players.
I wish I could read some of these tweets, but I can't. The FCC will not allow it to be done. But people are, of course, giving their emotional reactions here on a Reaction Monday presented by Fleet Management Services. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but hey, on to the next one. We are on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick once said. We have our final break to take here on Out of Bounds, and on the other side, we'll close up shop with 3 and Out, talk about some headlines, some storylines, some things we didn't get into, and get you ready for Drive Time Sports. All next here on Out of Bounds. All right, it is time for 3 and Outs. A few headlines, a few storylines, a few things that we got to dive into. Shout out to Tom Brady. We talk about him being everywhere, which he absolutely is everywhere, and it's so much fun to see some of the new things that he does. But somehow he ended up on Mr. Beast's, I would say that, his yacht, which for those of you who don't know who Mr. Beast is, he is a very wealthy YouTuber making a lot of money. But he was out there, and there was a drone out there in the water, takes a football, and throws it over there and knocks the droid out. So I was like, man, still got it. Even though he hasn't been playing over the past year, he's still got the cannon on him. So kind of a cool thing to see him doing something like that. But also, how cool would it have been hanging out on Mr. Beast $300 million yacht? Probably a pretty good time.
Jacksonville Jags having stadium renovations, which are not set to start here for a couple of years, but they have options as far as playing their home games once those renovations are approved and they get started. One of them is Daytona International Speedway, which is about almost 100 miles south of their current stadium in Jacksonville, and it holds over 100,000 for that facility. So that would be well equipped for the Jags to play games there right away. Now, other sites that are being mentioned, 11,000 seat baseball stadium that is a AAA affiliate for the Miami Marlins, and a 9,400 seat stadium at the University of North Florida. Now, to get both those facilities up to par for NFL ready games, they would look at adding about 20,000 seats, and that would cost about 125 mil at either site. So there's going to be a lot of money spent on renovations, but if they play home games at either one of those sites, it's going to be even more money that they would have to spend. Now, it has been said that they could still play home games at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, but that would cost around 190 mil. So now you're kind of weighing the options of, you want to pay 190 and still stay at the current stadium that the fans have access to, or do you want to pay 125 and save a little bit of money and play at one of these other sites?
So just a little update too on that Mr. Beast Tom Brady YouTube video thing. So it just came across that it's the second most viewed video in YouTube history over a 24-hour period. 48 million people watched that video in 24 hours. It's the second most. So if you're talking about monetization and everything, I think Mr. Beast probably made a big chunk of change when it comes to having Tom Brady on his yacht. So it was all worth it there too. Also, in some other news as well, speaking of yachts, we'll just keep it with the yachts because apparently that's been in the news too. There's this wild viral video that's going on about a orca attacking a yacht, and it was one of the craziest videos you'll ever see, and it ends up tearing off part of the rudder with its teeth. It's very terrifying, and every time I see this and I see an orca have some sort of involved in an attack, I remember I felt like I was cheated. Where I grew up watching the movie Free Willy, and I thought that those orcas were like the nicest, like cutest little noises that they made. Like they were just really good animals that you would like to have of a pet if you had a big old tank. No, that movie lied. Orcas are very dangerous, and they are very angry all the time, and they will apparently tear the rudder off your yachts. So I'm still upset that the fact that Free Willy lied to me, but still a really crazy video and a crazy story there. And I don't know how much that yacht cost, but it's not worth as much anymore, but at least it made for a great story.
Wayne Gretzky's final NHL jersey, which was in a Rangers jersey, it sold at auction for 715,000. And so this is the third highest selling jersey of all time, and it's only topped by one other of Wayne Gretzky's jerseys, which sold for about twice as much, 1.4 mil, and that was his final jersey in the Oilers jersey. So final game for the Oilers is the top selling jersey of all time, and this is number 3 overall, 715,000, his final jersey playing for the New York Rangers. And it's fitting that Wayne Gretzky retired in 1999.
So another video I'm sure a lot of you saw, that there were temperatures that were extremely warm, in London over the weekend, and they passed 30 degrees Celsius because, they're on that metric system and everything. Well, it overwhelmed some of the soldiers that took part in a military parade alongside Prince William. And you know how those English soldiers dress with the big, tall, black, furry hats and the red coats and everything. Well, so much so that one of the trombonists passed out while they kept on playing. And those soldiers, they're not supposed to do anything. They're not supposed to move. They got this guy just laying on the ground while they keep playing. Well, kudos to this soldier because he stood back up somehow, tried to gather himself, and tried to keep on playing. Now, eventually, they had some medical staff go over there, help him out, put him on the little stretcher thing, and get him checked out. He ends up being okay. But if that doesn't show you the toughness of those people, he didn't want to stay down. He wanted to get right back up and keep playing. And even remembered where they were at in the song. So shout out to him. Crazy video, but glad he's okay.
Jennifer Coolidge, she's 61 years old, and she says that she never had the desire to have kids because she, in her words, I'm very, very immature. I think that's kept me from having children because I'm sort of a child. Maybe if I had kids, I would have had to grow up. But she says that that's something that held her back from having kids because she felt like she was a big kid herself and never wanted to get to that point where she had to grow up.
I would be very upset, though, if she ever did have a kid and did not name the kid Stifler, because it'd have to be Stifler's mom. Like, you just have to keep rolling with it in the joke, especially since she was made so famous by that. A family in Los Angeles were cleaning out their parents' basement this past year, and they found at least 1 million pennies in a crawl space, which is around $10,000. They can't find any takers, though, because banks don't even want them. They don't want 1 million pennies. And apparently, according to sources that were on the story, they said it was boxes, it was crates, it was dozens of bank bags, all together over 1 million. They didn't say exactly how old they were, but it looked like it was somewhere in the 80s. And there's no story as to why they were there. But I was trying to think of like, okay, forget the $10,000 and 1 million pennies. That's great. How much did those things weigh total? Like, how much would that weigh? How do you even transport? I don't even want to know how it got in there, but they tried to go to Coinstar in the grocery store. Probably wouldn't take them. So they're going to try to find some other means, but still $10,000 worth of pennies is quite a bit.
Well, you can't do it all at one time and in one location. You have to be able to split that up. So there's a way that they can do it. Now, they did put it on OfferUp, and they tried to put it on for twice as much, 25,000, but they didn't have any success with that. But also within that collection somewhere, it's being said that there was a penny, and there have been several pennies that have been auctioned off. There was one from 1943 for over $1 million, just one single penny. So they could add out of these millions of pennies, they could have a few in there if they decided to go through them. But yeah, they have to be smarter about how they're going to try to turn them over and turn them in, because nobody's going to take them all in one spot.
Hands probably smell bad too.
Kevin Federline, he said that a couple of publications, Daily Mail and The Sun, that they lied when they said that he claimed Britney Spears was doing drugs. He said he never said that. And it saddens our family that Daily Mail and The Sun would fabricate these lies and publish such heartache to our family. We've endured a lot, and along with the trauma of our minor children, it's unacceptable. So he said that they've severed ties with both publications because of it.
Stay tuned, folks. Got Drive Time Sports coming up.